Hi everyone, welcome back to another video game review. If you don't know me, my name's Delilah, aka Assassina-san. Welcome back to my channel, where today we are going to talk about Biomutant. There's so many video games, which is also why this review took so long, even though I platinumed it a while ago. But everyone has a backlog and everyone has a list of games that they're looking forward to. Then there's games that you might eventually get around to, but they're at the bottom of your backlog list. Biomutant definitely falls into being one of those games that you don't need to play right now, but then when you finally do play it, it'll be like an okay to fine experience. Truthfully, I wasn't even gonna get this game, but then it was gifted to me. And after platinuming this game, I can say that I don't regret my time with it. But there's still so many other games that I would have preferred to play. Biomutant is simply a mediocre AA game that just does not stand out. So let me explain. On paper, this game sounds dope. It's an open world action RPG where you play as a cute little furry creature in a dystopian world. But when you get into the mechanics, you realize that Biomutant has way too many systems and none of them really feel that substantial to gameplay. It's just a basic open world game that doesn't stand out among the many open world games. So I'm gonna get a little bit into the weeds of all these systems just so you can see how complex they are, because I want you to see that I ain't lying. So there's a character creation and you modify the appearance of your furry protagonist, and it's influenced by their stats such as intellect, strength, dexterity. When you move towards intellect, you'll have a small body with a big head, and if you move towards strength, you'll have a big body with a small head. You get the point. Unfortunately, these initial stats aren't really that significant because you'll be able to level up and pour points into whatever stats that you want. So I would say just focus on making your character look cute. And if for some reason you're dissatisfied with the appearance you chose, either because you didn't know that stats in the beginning were not that significant, then there will be an area eventually where you can modify your head and body size. So after you modify your appearance in conjunction with some initial stats, then you'll choose even more stats, a class, and immunities. And this is where things start to become overwhelming and a bit dense. It's at this point where I realized the game could have benefited from that cliche motto, less is more. So let's break it down. You'll choose your character's breed. And despite each breed having a description, it doesn't really matter what you choose. It'll have a minor influence on your character's initial stats, but once again, you'll be able to modify that as you progress. So just choose what you think is cute. There's Primal, which has high dexterity, low intellect. Dum-Dum, which has high strength, low intellect. Rex, that has balanced strength and intellect. Gila is resilient and immune to biohazards. Fip has high intellect. Murgle is just appearance focused. Then once you choose your character's breed, you will choose your character's mutation, which influences their head and body size. And it'll also impact which biohazards your character's immune to, such as cold, heat, biohazard, and radioactivity. Once again, choose what's cute. So these mutations are strength, vitality, agility, charisma, and intellect. Then after you choose your breed and your mutation, hopefully you focus on what's cute, then you'll choose your class. The class gives you your starting abilities, but you'll eventually unlock more points to pour into different abilities, so choose whatever outfit of this class is cute. Or you can focus on the abilities that you want to start off with, but eventually you'll get points pretty quickly so that you can get the abilities you want anyway. The classes are Deadeye, which is the rogue class, Commando, operative class, Psy-Freak, psionic powers and mutations, Saboteur, which is explorer, Sentinel, which is protection. Basically, the class only impacts your initial outfit and, like I said, your abilities, but also if you pick the Psy-Freak, for example, you start off with more intellect points. Now that we've broken that down, I have to say it was extremely overwhelming to choose all of these different elements to my character and not knowing at first that none of this really matters. They're just simply starting stats that will quickly be tailored to what you want as you level up. You'll have the freedom to use any weapon you want, equip any piece of gear or outfits that you want, change your upgrades and stats, unlock any abilities regardless of what you picked at first. So like I said, just choose what's cute. So after you choose your class, your breed, your mutations, then you'll play the game and you'll start leveling up and earning upgrade points, side points, and bio points. And you have to dedicate these to respective abilities. Upgrade points slot into long-range ability, which are basically your guns, such as the shotgun, the pistol, the assault rifle, etc., or close range melee abilities, and your Wung Fu abilities, which are special attacks. Your psi points will go into your psionic powers, such as fire, ice, electricity, telekinesis, etc. Bio points will either go into bio powers like this fungi ability or this mucus bubble, or it'll give you resistances to biohazards such as cold, ice, biohazard, or radioactivity. If you think that's a lot, there's more. The menus and upgrade systems are completely dense, and within the first few hours of the game, I was overburdened with different tutorials. Yet, no matter how I scale my character, whether it be the beginning stats or things that I eventually acquired, I still had no issues with any enemies or any bosses. I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed the combat of this game, and switching in between my melee weapon, my gun, and my psionic powers is very satisfying and smooth. It just sucks that there's so many statistics and abilities involved to think about for your character, but none of it really feels too meaningful, especially if you're not going to have any issues with enemies. I wish that right now I could tell you that the customizability ends there, but it doesn't. There's also crafting. So you can craft weapons and gear, and when you're exploring the map, you will discover so much loot such as weapons, gear, and crafting items. You spend more time in this game looting than anything else, and for me it got exhausting, but if you're one of those people who gets very satisfied from looting things all the time, then I think you might like this. So you can choose to craft an entirely new weapon or gear set, or you can improve the weapons and gear that you found in the open world. I personally didn't even bother with crafting until the late game when I looted legendary weapons, and I just improved those. And I got through platinuming this game without crafting just fine. When it comes to gear, I don't think I crafted at all, not even to improve my gear. I didn't even bother. I just kind of equipped the gear that I had already looted that had the best stats. The only time I was really mindful about my gear is when I went into biohazard zone, so I would change my outfit to scale for resistance against cold, for example, or whatever the hazard is. Then eventually I got tired of changing my outfit just to adapt to the biohazard, so then I just poured all of my bio points into resistances so I could keep just one outfit on. Okay, so now that we got all of the systems out of the way, finally, in summary, BIOMUTANT has just too many different systems. And in the beginning, it's extremely overwhelming, all for it in the end to have minimal impact on your gameplay. Listen, the game's really easy, so my best advice is to be experimental with the different abilities and see what you like. I personally leaned into the psi powers because they're very satisfying to use and a bit overpowered. So now let's finally talk about story. Your furry little creature is navigating a dystopian world that has become uninhabitable by humans following toxic landfills that was caused by this toxinol company. These toxins caused some animals to mutate, and for the animals that didn't mutate and adapted to the toxins, they wind up becoming more intelligent, such as your furry little creature. This state of the world has caused turmoil among 6 tribes, and you'll have to choose to side with one. Choosing your tribe will not only influence your aura, which is dark versus light, but it will also influence what special weapons you unlock. More on that soon. There's also a tree of life, which is sustaining the world, but there are 4 giant monsters called world eaters that are gnawing away at the tree, and you're tasked with bringing them down. Probably my favorite aspect of this game. Your furry character isn't just navigating this toxic world, taking on world eaters, and choosing his tribe. He's also learning about his past because his mother was killed by someone called Lupa Lupin when he was a young little furry creature. So your character's on the path to encountering Lupa Lupin to find out more about what happened, and you get to choose either to have revenge or to be forgiving and move on, which will also impact your aura, dark versus light. This specific narrative thread was more interesting than learning about the Toxinol company or learning about the tribes, in my opinion. I never really felt connected to the story, and I did find myself skipping dialogue after the first few hours. So none of the characters in the game speak, they are giving like various voices like and then there's subtitles and a narrator that sounds like a children's storybook voice narrator.
He says it has taken you a long time to bring the past back up to the present, to find your way back, but he's grateful you have.
Eventually, the developers Experiment 101 did patch out the narrator so that you can only hear him in specific moments, not over every single dialogue, which made the dialogue a lot more tolerable. And although turning off this kid's storybook narrator made the dialogue more tolerable, it didn't make the dialogue any more interesting. So I mentioned aura a few times, light versus dark, and this is influenced by what tribe you choose, if you go on a path of revenge or forgiving against Lupa Lupin, what dialogue choices you choose, whether you're nice or mean, and if you choose to help NPCs in the open world, or if you choose to kill or save animals. I couldn't bear to kill any creatures, and not helping NPCs in the open world felt like it was taking away some content for me, so I definitely trended towards light. Aura really only impacts what gear you acquire and what abilities you can unlock. I will say though, some of the dark aura allows you to use some awesome side powers and unlock cooler looking gear. I definitely poured some points into dark aura by choosing bad dialogue, not by killing animals, because I wanted to unlock a dark aura side power, telekinesis. If you end the game trending towards a specific aura, you will have a different ending, but because I wasn't too connected to the story and I didn't find it that interesting, it didn't feel as impactful. I was also a little disappointed that if I chose to pet and save an animal, I couldn't see me petting the little creature. All you saw was a little head, but I suppose if I had chose to kill the animal, then I wouldn't want to see it get killed, so I guess that was the trade-off. Whatever. I just wish there was an option to kill these little creatures. Like, come on, we're killing animals mutated all the time. We don't need to kill the little innocent guys. Anyway, moving on. Overall, the storytelling is not the strong point in BIOMUTANT. So what is the strong point? I would say the enemy design and variety. The enemies are so quirky looking. If I had to describe them, I would say it's a combination of like Muppet horror mixed with Studio Ghibli creativity. There are tiny little creatures and large creatures that you'll have to fight, and I never felt like I was fighting the same enemy over and over again. There was so much variety. But unfortunately, despite there being so much variety in the enemies' appearances, none of the enemies fought too differently from the others, so there was no real strategy involved in approaching different enemies in different ways. You could just use your favorite abilities against any enemy and win with ease. There's really no strategy. One of the other serviceable aspects of BIOMUTANT is the pretty environment coupled with ambient music. For a game taking place in a dystopian world, it's still very vibrant. It's very relaxing to trot around the world on your mount and see the time of day changes. The game's art leans toward the cartoony side, but it's still very pretty. It's an interesting dichotomy to explore an open land of grass and then end up at a rundown suburb with torn houses and skeletons. But despite being pretty, the graphics do lack polish because you can see textures popping in very often. Adding to the density of this game's many systems is you'll unlock a variety of different mounts. So there's a bunch of creatures that you can mount, like goats and llamas and other weird looking creatures that you summon. There's also a goo glide and a whale for traversing waters. There's a giant mech that will protect you through specific hazardous areas, really not many, like maybe one. There's even a giant hand that shoots that reminds me of the Thing from the Addams Family. These mounts are quirky and cool, but there's just too many of them. And then they're all customizable and some of them are upgradable, so there's just like really too much to manage in BIOMUTANT. The reason why I spent so much time in this review discussing the different systems in BIOMUTANT is because that's my main complaint of this game. It's so heavy on the RPG elements, but none of it feels too significant in gameplay. If BIOMUTANT cut the systems in half, it would have been so much of a better game. Regardless, I still had a chill time exploring the open worlds, completing the different markers on the maps, fighting weird mutated creatures, and taking on the 4 world eaters. The combat's pretty fun. If you're still hesitant about purchasing this game, I would say wait for it to be about $15 or less. If you're hesitant about even putting time into this game, I would say put it really low on your backlog. It's not a must play. There's so many other better games that you can play right now. There are some minor things that I do have to nitpick about, which are elements that would have been fine in maybe 2014 but have become stale or redundant in 2021. Things such as balancing on a rope, doing a QTE to open something, or mashing a button to dig up an item. I don't want it to seem like I'm just shitting on this game. There is a lot to like. And don't worry, it didn't go unnoticed how cute my character looked when he got wet and his ears slowly rose from their droopy wet state when he dried off. I really love details like that. The only player that I will recommend this to is someone who absolutely cannot get enough of open world action RPG games, even if the bar is very low. So that's it. If you played Biomutant, I would love to hear your thoughts on the game. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Was there anything that I missed? I want to know all the details. But the most important thing is that you take care of yourselves and take care of each other.